James Baldwin once wrote, "I am what time, circumstance, and history have made of me, certainly, but I am also much more than that." And that's really why I wanted to start Black on Black. My name is Julian Michael. I'm a comedian, I'm a writer, I'm an educator. I do a lot of things, but really, Black on Black isn't about me. It's about sharing stories of all kinds of people from across the diaspora, and I hope that when you listen, you'll learn something, you'll enjoy, and you'll start a conversation. Check out Black on Black right here on Dragon Wagon Radio.
It's the greatest mystery in literary history. A divisive question with highly contested answers. Who was the writer behind the pen name William Shakespeare? Welcome to Don't Quill the Messenger. Here's your host, Stephen Sabel.
Thank you for joining us, fellow Quillers, on this new episode of Don't Quill the Messenger. We're so glad that you choose us as one of your listening pleasures. There are a lot of choices out there, and we're grateful that you make this one of yours. Wherever you are and however you are listening to us, I think you'll enjoy this episode because we have received requests specific to this episode where we had listeners say, what are your favorite and least favorite film adaptations of this incredible writer? And to help me have that discussion today, I have welcomed back one of my most favored guests and my most favorite guest, my wife, Annie. Here she is. Welcome back to the program, my love. It's been a while.
It has been a while. I'm happy to be back.
Well, you know, because I talked to you about this when I first received email requests from listeners that this was an episode that should be done, I immediately said, well, I got to bring you in on this. One of the things that most people don't know is one of the great aspects of our relationship is our love for these works. And we actually have seen a lot of Shakespeare plays together. Most commonly, the ones that we hated were the ones that we enjoyed the most.
Definitely the most memorable.
Yes. When it came to...
I have visions of bad Shakespeare dancing through my head right now.
Yes, absolutely. We have seen a lot of really terrible shows. And what we find is we really enjoy talking about the terrible shows. We end up spending more time talking about the terrible shows than the shows that we love. Whether it's Shakespeare, Broadway musicals, contemporary theater, whatever it is that we go to see together. And it's been a while since we've been able to go and see those types of shows live, but we do still view them on film. And what today is about is, more importantly, about viewing Shakespeare on film. We are not going to begin with our favorite, least favorites.
No, we will not.
No, we're going to start with the ones that we actually really love.
Yes.
And share those with some of the listeners. So thank you for joining us, fellow Quillers, for Don't Quill the Messenger. I hope it is one of your starred podcast favorites. And if it's not, then you need to make it so. In the meantime, we want to remind you that Don't Quill the Messenger is brought to you by the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship. And we want you to go visit their website. Go to shakespeareoxfordfellowship.org, O-R-G, and please consider joining the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship. Every member is entitled to quite a wonderful list of benefits, including you can choose whether you want to have digital or print access to the quarterly newsletter. You get pre-advanced notices on news and information that are happening in the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship organization, as well as you also become a voting member of the organization. So please consider joining the organization if you would. go to ShakespeareOxfordFellowship.org. What's your favorite Shakespeare film adaptation, Annie?
Oh my goodness. I would have to say I am extremely partial to. I have a favorite tragedy and I have a favorite comedy, and they both feature the same actor.
Really?
Yes, they do. So my absolute favorite Shakespeare tragedy on film, and probably actually Shakespeare film, is Othello. That is with Kenneth Branagh playing Iago, but as you and I found out, unbeknownst to me until a few nights ago, it was not directed by Kenneth Branagh. It was directed by Oliver Parker. Oh, then of course I went and IMDb'd him and found out all the other plays and
Did
things.
you rabbit hole?
Oh, of course,
Oliver Parker.
Of course,
Tell me more about Oliver Parker for just a
He
moment.
actually
'cause
has-
we have a lot of films to cover. So just but briefly, who the hell is Oliver Parker?
He's actually got a lot more of a history of directing Oscar Wilde films.
Really?
Yes, yeah. Ideal Husband, Importance of Being Earnest. So I think
Some
Othello
of the famous
was actually,
ones that we maybe have seen that
yes,
that
yeah,
we're familiar with, that
with
most people
famous
would
actors in. Yes,
Okay.
the biggest well-known versions of those films are directed by Oliver Parker. So he does
Interesting.
Oscar Wilde more so than he does Shakespeare. But his rendezvous with Shakespeare was Othello with Kenneth Branagh playing Iago and Laurence Fishburne playing Othello, and that happens to be one of my favorite plays, and I think it was influenced by the fact that I took a Shakespeare course in high school, and we watched that film of it. And I remember at that age going, I remember, right? I had to sign off, and my mom had to sign off on the fact that I was going to see this because I think it's an R-rated film.
I
It's
don't
at least
remember.
PG-13, but it is, and you know, I was seeing it as part of this Shakespeare play course that I was taking, and I remember loving it. And I watched it more recently and remembered, oh yeah, I love it. And I think I could understand more of the reasons why I loved it after seeing it more recently. So that is definitely very high up on my list.
I would say that Branagh's Iago is one of the best
Brilliant.
film performances he gave in his entire career to
I
this
would
day.
have to agree with you 100% with that.
And it is interesting that people will call that Branagh's Othello, and it's not. It is Parker's Othello, but Branagh plays Iago. However, also super impressive, even though Branagh is brilliant as Iago. One of the reasons why Branagh is so good as Iago is because Fishburne's Othello.
Laurence Fishburne is quite magnificent as Othello.
Okay, so are we saying that is the number one film adaptation?
That's my favorite. But, you know, obviously I'm biased. It happens to be one of my favorite plays. It always has been. I'm not.
Okay, so in the top five, and I'm holding a pen here and I have a list and I'm like checking them off.
Okay.
Because
it's definitely in the top five.
I came armed with the list. So in the top five, it belongs. Somewhere else in the top five, and I won't say in which order, what I have here is you can't deny Zeffirelli. You can't deny his three greatest.
I've only seen two of the three greatest to admit, but yes, they are some of the greatest.
Where does Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet fall?
On my list?
In any list?
I would say probably 3 or 4.
So in the top five.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And one of the great performances there, I mean, obviously, Olivia Hussey that was scandalous, right? Yeah. I believe she was under the age of 18.
I think she was 16.
And they show her bare bottom in that film.
Absolute scandal.
And that would never be allowed today.
And she did a good job beyond just like the nudity of it all and everything. She was a young girl playing a big role in a big film.
Well, here's the thing about Zeffirelli is he tried so hard to cast the role appropriately, understanding that in the script she's 13 going on 14. You finding an actress who can do that at that age is probably not possible.
Nope.
However, what he found was the closest thing. I'm not sure why, I understand why, but I'm not sure how he got away with what he did with that brief nudity scene of her backside. But I understand that the point being is these two characters are so in lust with each other.
So in lust. Because they're teenagers.
And we see them right before the lust ignites. We see them when the lust ignites. And then we see them right after the lust has burned.
Mm-hmm.
And then they make these vows and etc. It's pretty intense sequence of scenes for those characters. And I think he masters it quite well.
I agree. 100%.
Another unsung hero of that movie, however, also is Michael York as Tybalt.
Absolutely.
Yes. The great Michael York, who, by the way, is a staunch Oxfordian.
Oh,
I met him.
There we go.
I met him once. I spoke with him multiple times on the phone, and then I met him once face to face. Years after I had conversations with him on the phone. I had conversations with him on the phone because I was trying to get him to be a guest presenter at the Shakespeare Festival that I operated.
Oh, really?
Yes. At one time, you remember you were there. You starred in one of those two of those performances.
Yes.
One of the things I remember him saying to me, because I was trying to entice him to Redlands, California, where that Shakespeare, I said,
had to work really hard for that one.
We have one of the oldest country clubs. Redlands does have one of the oldest country clubs on the West Coast of the United States.
Actually, it does not surprise me at all.
I was enticing him with golf. And you know what he said to me? He said, this is a direct quote. "Oh, yes, golf. The best way to ruin a beautiful walk in the park." Yeah. The best way to ruin a beautiful walk in the park. That was Michael York.
Love
and then I realized, he's not a golfer.
No.
And
you just threw
it was so beautiful.
That out of nowhere.
It was beautiful and brilliant. The best way to ruin a beautiful walk in the park. Don't play golf. He didn't like golf. I was like, how can I get him here? And then I met him at the very first Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship Conference I ever attended, which was in Pasadena, California. And he was a guest there. And I came to him face to face and I said, "Hi, I'm Stephen, Redlands Shakespeare Festival," and blah, blah, I was dumbfounded. I was like, starstruck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, yes, we're not going to golf."
Well, at least you were memorable.
Yes. Beautiful man. Beautiful man. Okay, so Zeffirelli's R&J on the list. I don't want to go down the Zeffirelli rabbit hole because there are two other great films from him right now, but I want to go back to one that I believe deserves to be on this list. And one of the reasons is I believe it is one of the greatest plays ever written in the history of dramatization. And it is Much Ado About Nothing.
I have to agree with you there. I was going to say it's a toss-up between Othello and Much Ado, and both of them starring Kenneth Branagh. And this one, Much Ado, happens to be directed by him as well, and starring his magnificent wife at the time, Emma Thompson, whom I love. But it also features plenty of other actors who were actually not really well-known stars at the time. Denzel Washington, I think, was probably fairly well established, and
he's brilliant.
Who doesn't love Denzel?
But his Don Pedro is magnificent.
I loved it. He was great for that part.
Yes, magnificent.
Yes. But like Kate Beckinsale was Hero, and
people did not know that.
No, not
right
at
now,
all.
listeners are going, "What? No, what did she just say?"
Yes, Kate Beckinsale is Hero.
Yes.
Who can forget the great Keanu as Don John?
Okay, stop. Because I'm going to say right now, and everybody listening, all you Quillers need to know this. First of all, Keanu is a member of the fold.
Yes.
He is a Shakespeare authorship doubter. He happens to be, I believe, based on statements he's made publicly, an Oxfordian, but he could be leaning anyway. Who knows? This is what we do know. He doesn't believe the man from Stratford is the author. That's important. Now, he gets a lot of flack.
He was great as Don John.
Well, it's not hard to be great as Don John, and that's the point of Don John. It's, it's a mechanism role. It's really there just as a tool.
But when you think about it, it is an all-star cast, but it's a young all-star cast before they were superstars in many cases.
Yes.
And many of them went to do a lot of other wonderful, better-known things with their careers. But it is you have to really appreciate how much they all brought to the table, I think. And I think that's one of the things that makes that play really well written, is the fact that it is a very good ensemble. We all know Beatrice and Benedict, but it is actually a very well written ensemble play. And Branagh found a really good ensemble cast.
Much better historians and scholars than I would, if they were here in this room right now on this podcast, say, oh, that happened in this date and this year and buddy, which I can't give you because I'm not as great as they are. But I can tell you this. I know that they exist who can tell you that there is a story in it. I don't know if it's documented or not. Please write me. Please write to Jake is going to be so mad at me that I didn't get this right. I think it's contact at. Just go to
your own email address?
Okay, listen, just go to the Dragon Wagon Radio website, and that's how you can contact this show. Go to the dragonwagonradio.com website, click contact this show, and tell this show what you want to tell this show. This is what we need to know. Is it true or not that King James said that he enjoyed that Beatrice and Benedict play? Because I believe that's a legendary story. I don't know if it's true or not, but I believe that James himself referred to this play as the Beatrice and Benedict play or story or whatever, or the play about Beatrice and Benedict. Anyway, he didn't remember the title, but he remembered those characters, is, I believe, the legendary story.
But I think there are other characters that really make up that. Like we said, Don Pedro was a fantastic character. You've always wanted to play Leonardo, Hero's father.
It's a beautiful role.
Yeah, exactly.
It's, why I want to play that role? It's a De Verean role.
Sure.
Yes.
The father.
It is.
The father who regrets what he's done to his daughter.
And she dies to live again.
Right.
It's
Sure.
It's that's the apologetic role of the writer. That's the most autobiographical role in that play, I would argue. And I'd love to have a debate with anyone about that. And I'd love to hear their views on the most autobiographical role of that play. But I will say it is the greatest play ever written. Yes, I love Hamlet. Don't fight me about Hamlet. I love Lear. Don't fight me about Lear. But Much Ado About Nothing is the most perfect piece of theatricality ever written because it has all of it. It's funny. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. It's tragic.
Yes, it definitely has tragic moments. And I will definitely agree with you that it is, I think, his finest comedy.
Kenneth Branagh captured it better on film than anyone ever has.
I don't really actually know of hardly any other film adaptations of that one that are worth noting. It's not one that is brought to film very often.
There's one on my other list.
Oh, goodness, that's right. I tried to shut that one out of my mind. Sorry,
Joss. You fail.
Yeah, it was terrible.
We'll go back to that. Oh, P.S. Stay tuned. We'll get back to the worst list.
Yeah.
And if you're mad right now, stay tuned. We'll explain.
Yeah.
Next on my list in the top 5 is another Zeffirelli film.
Hamlet.
Yes, it is. And
because it wasn't directed by Mel Gibson.
But exactly. Zeffirelli did not play Hamlet. Oh my God, that would be crazy. That'd be like me trying to play Hamlet now. No, worse. Because by the time Zeffirelli was directing Mel Gibson as Hamlet. And so many people said that, Gibson was way too old to play Hamlet. Well, yes, technically he was. But historically, that's the problem with Hamlet. Most men who are or women, because plenty of women have played Hamlet, including the great Sarah Bernhardt. Get out of my brain. Most of the actors and actresses who have played Hamlet throughout history famously have done so at a much greater age than Hamlet is supposed to be. And I think that that's one of the challenges of that role. Ironically, the challenge of Lear is the opposite.
Right.
But for Hamlet, you need to be old enough to understand it.
Right.
And really relate to it.
Right.
And most people, the age of Hamlet as determined through the text of the play, which is about 33 years old, can't do it. The opposite for Lear is he's supposed to be 80.
Yeah, most 80-year-olds cannot do Lear.
Oh my God. Most 80-year-olds can't do. Yeah. Anyway. I don't know where I was going to go with that. I was trying to think of a Shakespearean role. I've never worked with an 80-year-old actor in any Shakespearean play, so I can't even say.
The older guy that's supposed to be guiding Orlando in As You Like It. Adam. There you go.
Adam.
The 80-year-olds can play Adam.
I don't know. Some 80-year-olds probably can play Lear.
Yes, some probably could, but very few, just because of the amount of lines, truthfully.
I've started memorizing those lines now.
Good.
Just so
in
that
all your spare time.
By the time I'm old enough to play Lear, I'm hoping some of them will stick and
sometimes
director
I go
will
to bed
actually
and
cast
wonder
me.
what he does at all hours in the morning after I've gone to bed. Now I know he's memorizing Lear.
That's one of the things about the works of this author that we're going to cover even here just in these film adaptations that needs to be noted. And this is why actors and actresses want to be a part of a Shakespearean company and do all they can to get into
longevity.
Any good. You can play your life.
You play your cards right. You can start at Juliet and end at Margaret.
Yes.
You can start at Romeo and end at Lear.
Yes. Yes, you can.
And have everything wonderful in between.
Yes, you can. And you can't, name me another writer who can do that.
No, I can't. It's not possible. Because usually writers...
Okay, no, wait a minute. That was too quick. Think for a moment. Name me another playwright. Really analyze. Is there another playwright where you can have that kind of career in the theater from age 13 to age 80? Or, as you said, with the males, but you could play the little Indian boy and start at age 9, 10. Our daughter played it at age 4. So you could start and go all the way to Lear. Can you do 70 years of characters with any other writer?
I can't think of anything.
Me either.
No.
Me either. Oh, I'm so glad we came upon that in this discussion. Okay, next. So Zeffirelli's Hamlet, starring
Mel Gibson.
Okay, how many of you are like mind blown right now? Because you used to call it and you believed it was Mel Gibson's Hamlet. Oh, Mel Gibson's Hamlet. Mel Gibson's Hamlet. Yes, it is Mel Gibson playing Hamlet. But just because Mel Gibson has directed and also starred in and directed and starred in multiple productions through his career doesn't mean that his Hamlet is his Hamlet. Meaning that Gibson's Hamlet is Zeffirelli's Hamlet, starring Mel Gibson. And I think that's why it's so good.
And there we go. Once again, a powerful supporting cast. Now, Hamlet is definitely not the ensemble piece that Much Ado About Nothing is. I think over half of the entire text of Hamlet is Hamlet.
True.
However, there are that show doesn't go anywhere without at least a good solid support behind it. And those are well-written characters, underwritten because most of the show is Hamlet, but still very well written. And
You think Claudius is underwritten?
no, I would say
Gertrude
probably
is
not.
underwritten?
Both of the females are underwritten.
No, well, all the females are
Maybe
underwritten.
I'm a little biased. Not all
P.S.
of the females. Rosalind is not underwritten.
Okay,
None
good
of the
point.
comedic-
touche. Oh, man, she
None-
just stabbed me through the
None
heart.
of the comedic females who are the leaders of those comedic plays are underwritten. It's the tragic females that are underwritten. Desdemona is very underwritten. Ophelia is very underwritten. Gertrude, not as much, but still, you could glean some more meat out of Gertrude. However, Glenn Close and Helena Bonham Carter are two of my favorite Gertrudes and Ophelia ever.
Zeffirelli caught a lot of flack for the order of the scenes because he takes
sure.
a lot of liberties
Sure.
with the sequencing.
Yes, he does.
Of the scenes.
He does.
I don't disagree with the criticisms, most of them. Like some of them are just mean, and that's not appropriate. I have problems with making that kind of change. I do. But it doesn't take away from, and perhaps may have added to, the quality of the performances of the actors who played the roles in that film. Nonetheless, I would say, fight me. You ready? Everybody can come fight me. Send me. I want your emails. Send me the emails. Here's what I'm going to tell to you. I'm going to tell you right now. The best Hamlet on film ever is Mel Gibson under Franco Zeffirelli's direction.
Just wait for the emails to pour in.
I think under the fact that I just said that, we need to talk about some other Hamlets.
Sure.
So let's talk about some other Hamlets. What's the first one that comes to your mind next?
Kenneth Branagh's.
And because everybody out there right now, they're like, what's she going to say? What's she going to say? What are you going to say?
About Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet?
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's the epitome of Kenneth Branagh going, I can do 4 hours uncut of Hamlet because I am who I am and nobody else can do this.
Whoa.
So,
wait a minute. Are you saying that Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet is self-indulgent?
I don't think you do all 4 hours of Hamlet if it's not slightly self-indulgent, maybe even more than slightly. And I will say this quite candidly because I obviously know how you feel about that film, and I actually tend to like that film much more than you do. And I think that yes,
you do.
I do.
You do.
Part of that has to do with I don't dislike Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet. I agree it is self-indulgent because truthfully nobody does that show uncut unless it is self-indulgent.
But you also like the stunt casting that I don't like.
I do like some of the stunt casting. And for some of it, it's not stunt casting. I mean, I have a very particular affinity for Kate Winslet. I like Helena Bonham Carter's Ophelia better than Kate Winslet.
Yes, I love Kate.
However, she was young. She hadn't even done Titanic yet. And I think she shows fantastic potential in that movie that
it
Kenneth
probably
Branagh
helps her land the Titanic role, actually, truly.
And I also will always have an affinity for that movie, I think, because I saw it at a movie theater, completely, obviously, uncut, with an intermission in it because you can't, so it was like a whole day.
Everybody has to go pee.
It was a whole day that you devote to that, going to the movie theater to watch that play. And because afterwards, Kenneth Branagh was there doing a Q&A session, and he talks very fondly about, he talks very fondly.
That's a trump card. That's not fair. That's a wild card you just pulled out of the deck. That's not fair.
He talked very fondly at that time about when Kate found out she got the role in Titanic, because she was on set for that film when she found out that the next project she was moving on to was Titanic, which obviously catapulted her career ginormously.
No, what? No.
But no. But however, I mean, all of that aside, I don't dislike some of the director moves that he pulls as well. I agree with one of the things that I know that you dislike about this film, which is that it's a little bit too all over the map. There were too many choices that were made that were not cohesive, which I don't like, and I never really like. However, I don't dislike his interpretation of Hamlet, and I like some of the choices he made. I just wish they were tied together in a more cohesive unit. But again, I am biased. I also saw Kenneth Branagh play in a play in London, and he could recite the ABCs, and I would probably fawn over it.
Oh, wait. Okay, so you would go see Kenneth Branagh in the opening of a bottle of Coke.
Yep, probably.
Or any soda pop.
I saw him play in Chekhov's Ivanov, which is not ever done because it's one of Chekhov's least known plays because nobody ever does it.
Now I envy you
sat up in
how I envy you.
I sat up so far, and he was not mic'd, and it was a giant theater, and I sat up so far, and I felt like I was standing right there next to him. You cannot discount the fact that the man has a fantastic command of the language. And that's why I say I will not dislike his Hamlet, because
I'm going to say this. He is a much greater actor than he is a director. That's what I think. And I think that's where he fails that Hamlet, in that he had to be both.
It's a ginormous
trust me,
feat to
I have
take
done
on.
that.
I know you have, and I bet it's a magnanimous feat to take on.
I haven't done it for film. I haven't done it for film. But so because I was so intimidated by the idea of self-directing Hamlet, that the first time I did it, I hired a director in. I hired an equity director to come in and direct the show. And he was brilliant. He was great. In fact, when the next year I ended up recreating that production, I used a lot of his material that he had created for the original production. We were recreating. The one difference I was able to make was the direction of the supporting actor.
Sure.
And I was so grateful to have that opportunity to play Hamlet 2 years in a row and have the time to work on that role for 2 years. Because P.S., I think that's crucial. Now that I've done it, I realize that's crucial. It takes that long. Yeah. It takes so long. But what I'll tell you is, I can't even imagine watching dailies. It was self-indulgent, and I think if he had a Franco Zeffirelli,
it would have been a better film.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. I completely agree with you there. And yes, you call it stunt casting, but there were some very
Robin Williams should not have been in that film. I'm sorry.
Not.
God rest Robin Williams. God bless him, and God rest him.
Billy Crystal probably shouldn't have been in that film.
Yeah, come on, really? So suddenly you're Mel Brooks doing your come on.
Well, I mean, the Gravediggers are supposed to be the comedic relief.
But really?
No.
Yeah, anyway. I'm sorry.
Okay,
another Hamlet. Here's one I hate.
Ethan Hawke's?
Yes. For a variety of reasons that we shouldn't even spend too much time on.
No,
so just to say,
really. Don't waste your time.
No. They all try really hard.
They do.
Who played Claudius in that film?
I don't remember. And Ethan Hawke is a good actor. It was just not.
The Claudius was not bad, but he was the same age as Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, I don't. And there are some good actors in that film. It just wasn't. I don't know. They took it and they adapted it to corporate world, and Denmark was a corporation, and it just didn't. It didn't work.
Okay. However, conversely, first modern dress Hamlet that I'm aware of is Kevin Kline.
Mm-hmm.
It's a PBS thing, BBC thing.
And I will admit, I have seen clips of it. I have not seen the full film of that one.
I have to tell you that it was right after watching Kevin Kline play Hamlet that I was first introduced to the Shakespeare authorship question.
See, there we go.
You'll
always have an affinity for that Hamlet, then.
I will, of course. I was at the home of a friend of mine that I had befriended in high school, and his mom and dad were two of the greatest people. You know how that is with kids for some reason, like
I have very fond memories of my best friend's parents
being the best.
Yeah.
I want you as my mom and dad.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
every
And
kid
she
wants.
was such a
every
good
kid wants
cook
that
and,
person.
like-
Yeah, sure, because that person doesn't have to ever discipline them or tell them no or tell them it's bedtime or tell
exactly.
them you need to
Yes.
eat your vegetables
Yeah.
or whatever.
No,
Sure,
my friends' parents were awesome.
that's the same reason why kids love grandparents so much.
Yes,
Is grandparents are like,
exactly.
oh no, I did that.
Yep.
Your mom and dad can do that. I'm just gonna have fun with you.
Yeah. Anyway, you digress.
Yes, I'm sorry. But anyway, Perry Engel was his name. And he said, after watching Kevin Kline, Hamlet, and Kevin Kline gives the great, he's great on the monologues. He really is.
Mm-hmm.
For that time and for that style of acting too, because if you look at it now, it's very dated. It is.
Sure.
But he was brilliant. And you understand why he's been in so many other. He played Bottom in that great Midsummer.
Yes.
That's on our list as well. He played Jaques in that As You Like It. That's also on our list, but on the other side
I
of the
haven't
list,
seen it. I don't want it to completely ruin Kenneth Branagh films for me.
it will. We'll go there. Anyway, next, this. Perry Engel at the end of that show says, Shakespeare didn't really write Shakespeare. And that's a problem with this whole Shakespeare authorship question, is because too many people hear that that's their first introduction. Shakespeare didn't write Shakespeare. Well, yes, he did. P.S.
It was a pen name.
Absolutely, he did. So that's a problem as a way to introduce people to this subject. Shakespeare wrote Shakespeare. Shakespeare of Stratford did not write Shakespeare.
But you could never introduce somebody to that concept like that because they just look at you and go, who to what?
So I would say it's better to say, well, Shakespeare is a pseudonym. And
a pen name, especially if you're speaking to high school kids.
Let's enter with that,
Yes.
right? Let's enter with that. Anyway, Kevin Kline as Hamlet, I say, is better than Branagh and Hawk both.
Okay. I don't know enough about that film version to agree or disagree with you. I have only seen some short clips of it, but I would Kevin
Remember,
Kline is a fine
I
actor.
encourage your responses. So if you
Yes.
disagree, please send me an email.
Open the floodgates.
Yes. And seize the day.
Ha.
The other Hamlet on both of our lists, well, both of my lists, both of the lists, pro and con, that we haven't talked about yet, is the most recent one that we saw together. We went to the movie theater. So here's something you need to know about us, ladies and gentlemen, is we don't go to the movies unless it's
Shakespeare films.
unless it's
I can literally tell you
Shakespeare
the
live,
last,
quote unquote,
yeah.
from Royal Albert Music Hall or somewhere in London or the Met or wherever. And the last Hamlet we saw was Cumberbatch playing Hamlet. That was a filmed performance. I forget at what theater probably the West End, I think it was, but it was part of that whole series that they do where they then telecast it to movie theaters. And we went and we bought the tickets and we went and saw Cumberbatch play Hamlet. And I'll tell you, the best thing about that production was Ciarán Hinds as Claudius. He crushed it. I'd love to play with that actor. He's one of the finest actors of our age, ladies and gentlemen, and his Claudius is magnificent.
His Claudius was magnificent.
Unfortunately, I think Cumberbatch's Hamlet was misdirected. He's a brilliant actor, and
He
I
is a
love
brilliant
him.
actor. Yeah.
I believe he has great talent. I think the director failed him.
I would have to agree with that.
There was something about Hamlet's madness that became infantile, and
Yes.
I don't think that serves Hamlet well.
No.
And I think that was the crux of that film. It wasn't really a film, technically. It's a live performance.
I know it
being
was
filmed.
like streaming
now-
virtual theater before COVID times.
Oh my God, you're right. So now our audience is going, well, that doesn't count. That's not a film adaptation. Okay, you're right. We'll move on. So moving on.
But if you hadn't had a chance to stream virtual theater, you really should, because there are a lot of theaters out there who need your assistance at this time. So take some time to stream some virtual theater. Go on.
Nice, shameless plug.
I work for a theater that is trying very hard to live stream virtual theater. Any support you can give is much appreciated to any theater who's trying to do it. Go on.
I don't want to chide you, dear, for that shameless plug of the show that we both happen to be in right now for barnstormersgp.com that people could live stream from anywhere in the world who might be listening to this podcast. But I do want to say that shame on you for diverting our discussion from Zeffirelli's other great Shakespearean adaptation that we have not talked about, which is Taming of the Shrew. Now, it's great because it's Zeffirelli, and P.S., it happens to also feature Michael York.
Oh.
Michael York is the only actor who appears in 2 of Zeffirelli's Shakespeare adaptations. And he's Tybalt in Romeo and Juliet, and he's Lucentio in Taming of the Shrew, which is a great role, by the way. Yeah, Tranio's the better role, but Lucentio's a great role. What people remember about that Taming of the Shrew, however, is Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Yes, it's Taylor and Burton. And the thing that's wrong with it is they're actor baiting all over the film. Like every step of the film, it's all about, we're Taylor and Burton. We're actor baiting all over this film. And that's what happens. And unfortunately, that's one of the things that makes it not a better film. And there's no way that Zeffirelli was going to control those 2 big, great stars. There's no way.
That's what you get for choosing them to be in your Taming of the Shrew.
That's one of the earliest representations of stunt casting.
Sure.
And you would have thought that Branagh would have learned from that.
Well, but here's where we go. Okay. He knows, I think, how to bring together a very strong ensemble of fine actors. And I will say, at that point, when he had done Hamlet, it was more stunt casting than it was stunt casting when he did Much Ado About Nothing. And yes, it was. There was some polls
Michael
there
Keaton,
that shouldn't have happened.
We didn't even talk about Michael Keaton. And I know that there are people out there going, thank God they finally mentioned Michael Keaton as Dogberry. I really can't. I just can't. I can't even comment about Michael Keaton as Dogberry. I truthfully, all these years, have not decided whether it was brilliant or horrible.
Yeah.
I'm so lost in that performance.
That's so Dogberry.
It is.
Because he's somewhat annoying but lovable all at the same time. Anyway.
I would not have directed Keaton that way. As a director, I could say I would not have directed Keaton that way.
All right.
I have no desire to ever play that role. It's a really, really tough role to play.
Right.
George Burns. Comedy is serious business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's really hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. I cannot comment very much on The Taming of the Shrew, though, because I have not seen it. But that does sound like quite the stunt cast.
Okay, somewhere in the top 5, if not the top 10, has to come episodes of the Hollow Crown series.
Yeah, the Hollow Crown in general. If
you haven't, P.S., by the way, fellow Quillers, go get the Hollow Crown. Watch them all. They're not all fabulous. They're all good.
Yes.
But they're not all fabulous. But some of them are magnificent.
They're all definitely worth watching.
Yes.
I would say, and we've discussed this, is there are some very, very fine actors in that series. Jeremy Irons, who plays Henry IV, was, I think, fantastic. And Tom Hiddleston as Henry V was also fantastic.
As young Hal.
As young Hal.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
here's the person I can thank for introducing me to this series is my friend Will Holbrook,
who played Hal.
Who played my young Hal when I played Henry IV.
Right.
He just lost his grandfather not too long ago, the great Hal Holbrook. And what a tremendous loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, having worked on stage with his grandson and having directed him in both, he started as Fernando in our production of Hamlet, and then from there he was our Romeo, and then he was our Prince Hal. He's a fine young talent with a pedigree you can't imagine. And I feel very grateful to have worked with him on stage, as well as having directed him as a young actor.
He is a fine actor.
And he's the one who gave us
the Hall of Crown.
Yes, he gave us the Hall of Crown. And I'm sorry, but I think you missed one.
I definitely missed one.
I will tell you that Ben Wishaw's Richard II is one of the finest performances I have ever seen on film of any actor playing any Shakespeare role. Yeah, agreed. I wept at him.
Agreed.
And one of the reasons that I wept at his performance is because I discovered by watching him that I cannot play that role now. I've said that on this podcast before, and it's true. No, and some people, there was a great listener, one of you fellow Quillers, who sent me an email and said, Richard II was 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Sorry, it doesn't matter how tall he was. Ben Whishaw captures the bard's writing better than anyone. And I can't match that. I can't. I can play some good Shakespeare roles, and I have. I without bragging, I have.
Yes.
I can't do that one anymore because his performance is so good.
I would say the only disappointment truly that I had with that series of films is the Falstaff. And I was particularly disappointed because that actor is a fine actor, is Simon Russell Beale.
Oh,
he is
you went there.
Fine actor. He's a fine actor. I've seen him on stage. When I was studying in London, he was the it thing on the London stage. I saw him in like 3 different plays when I was studying there. And
I don't recall who directed that film, but maybe it was the director.
It could have been direct. And I will definitely agree with you there because I think and I was very excited to see his Falstaff because knowing him as the stage actor that I knew him as, I would have expected that to be such a wonderful Falstaff, and it disappointed.
Okay, I will agree with you, and I will say that his Falstaff is equitable to Jeremy Irons, who I love, who we just said was magnificent as Henry IV.
Fantastic Henry IV.
But Jeremy Irons and Al Pacino
in Merchant of Venice,
and that production of Merchant of Venice is horrible.
Yeah, it's
it's terrible. It is a horrible film. And let me say before you go, oh, it was so whatever. Let me say this to you. I don't think people really understand that play. I don't know that any of us can because we never lived in that world.
No, I agree with you.
But I want to believe, and if I'm wrong, then somebody please show me your research on why I'm wrong. But I believe that play is empathetic in ways that people don't understand and often misinterpret.
Yes, I think so.
And I think Othello is the same way too. There is no more eloquent speaker in all of the canon
It's one of the reasons why I love that movie.
than that
too,
title
is-
role.
Yeah.
And Laurence Fishburne
did a fantastic job.
He's right for it,
Yeah, very
not
right for it.
playing it.
No, it
And
just
that's
worked.
not to say he was a method actor. It's just
No,
to say
it
that
just worked. He was very well cast.
He understood it.
Yeah.
The way that, please don't. You need to see Laurence Olivier playing Othello. That's on our other list as like terrible. I'm sorry, it's terrible.
I haven't seen it. I truly have no desire to see it.
Yeah, don't. Yeah. But Fishburne is brilliant. So going down the list further, however, there are some of those traditional great, even black and white films that I think are some of the best adaptations. Even because in some of these stories, it transcends whatever our social conscience is today, or was 200 years ago, or was 300 years ago, or was 400 years ago, or 450 years ago when some of these plays were written, right? So here's one I think belongs in at least the top 10, and that is Julius Caesar, starring, in no particular order, John Gielgud as Cassius and Marlon Brando as Mark Antony. James Mason plays Brutus. That is the most unforgiving role in the canon. I've directed that show 3 times. And if any of my former Brutai are listening, please forgive me. But I will tell you this. I have not had a Brutus who could conquer Brutus, because it is one of the most difficult roles in the canon.
I would have to. It's a difficult role because it is a magnanimous role. It's a big, very large role, and it is the crux of that story. His character is. But truthfully, the drama of that story, the beauty of that story, is a lot of its supporting characters. What do people remember about Julius Caesar? A lot of it has to do with Mark Antony and Cassius. And that's one of the reasons why you get John Gielgud as Cassius, who has just, there's another actor who just brilliant command of the language. Brilliant command of the language.
He is the epitome of Cassius.
Yes.
He's so smooth.
Yes.
Without being slimy.
Yes. Which is the epitome of Cassius. And then everyone who's familiar with Shakespeare, Julius Caesar, knows that Mark Antony speech, knows that Mark Antony charisma. You have to be so charismatic to play that role, which is why Marlon Brando did a fine job. And
you know what I really hate about that show, most of the performances that I've seen of it, is that you almost always have a Mark Antony who doesn't actually understand what's happening in those first famous 3 lines.
Sure.
Friends, Romans, countrymen. That's it. Let's just go there. Forget the lend me your ears. Oh, yes, lend me your ears, lend me your eyes, lend me your whatever part. Lend me your ears is about hear me.
Right.
But the friends, Romans, countrymen are increasingly louder calls to the thousands of masses
that are listening to that speech.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not prophetic at that point. It's not philosophical. It's hey, shut up. I'm trying to talk here.
It's an appeal.
Yes.
Yeah. It's bigger, it's louder, it's more, hey, friends, Romans, countrymen, right?
It's shut up, I'm calling you.
Yeah. I get it.
Please listen.
I've
Lend me
always
your
wanted
ears.
to play Mark
Listen.
Antony. Remember,
Really?
I'm still upset at you when you did the all-female cast and it didn't work out for me to play Mark Antony.
I could
think
do that
I was
again.
pregnant with one of our children or something.
So
just
here's
wouldn't
what I'm going
worked
to tell
to
you.
have a pregnant Mark Antony.
As you know, I'm a huge fan of the Godfather movies.
Yes.
Don Corleone is definitely up there when it comes to Brando's like greatest performances,
Yes.
right? I'm going to say this. Send me your emails. I'm going to say this. His best performance on film is Mark Antony in that movie.
All right, let the emails roll in.
Yeah. He peaks. He's like Orson Welles. He peaks so early there. And part of it is because he's surrounded by magnificent talent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to say that. Write me. I dare you. Next on my list of goodies, the first Shakespeare film our daughter Stella ever saw at 3 days old.
Not even Stephen. Even Stephen.
Not even Stephen?
Not even. No, she was not even 3 days old.
How
it
old
was
was she?
Christmas night we watched that movie with her. She
was
was
1
a
day
old when we were watching The Tempest with her.
Well, I was trying not to be too dramatic.
Sorry. I took it from you.
1 day old, we watched The Tempest.
The Tempest.
Again, not a film adaptation, but a recording of a live performance. And I will say to this day, the best Prospero I've ever seen.
Yes. But I can't really even think of any other film adaptations of that film, of that story.
Really?
That
Because Helen Mirren
No,
is
no,
magnificent, but her Prospera is
not.
magnificent.
Right. Like we say, we need reminders that Helen Mirren is not perfect, and that's one of those.
That is one. It's one of the only reasons I won't leave you for her.
I know. Thank you, Helen, for
Thank you for The Tempest.
Yes, thank you.
But Christopher Plummer,
Yes, as
however,
Prospero.
is pretty damn awesome.
Definitely.
Yes. So that's on the list of go see it.
Definitely.
All right. Here's one I want to talk about. The Hunchback.
Richard.
Yeah.
Ian McKellen's.
Okay. Have you seen Olivier?
I have not. No. I'm actually. I'm at pains to admit, Quillers, I have not seen very many Olivier films at all.
We're gonna fix that, Quillers.
I know.
I'm gonna fix that. You know I will.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to do another episode where we talk about the films that Annie didn't see that she needed to see that now she can say to you, "Oh my God, that was wonderful," or "Oh my God, that was terrible."
So no, we have not seen Olivier's Richard III.
So here's what I'll say about that. Olivier's R3, Ricardo, I.
Wow, you went there.
I did. If you think about it, 1, 2, 3, Richard, 1, 2, 3, Ricardo, I.
Uh-huh.
I like it.
We did it. The Spanish
Roman
version.
numerals.
Yes, yeah, Ricardo.
See, I think
and
that
he and
I think
Lady
Edward
Anne
would be-
can like do a tango dance during that whole scene.
if you cast Spanish actors,
Absolutely.
then I think you could. That would be a really interesting
You digress.
rendition. However, what I would say is that Olivier's Richard definitely informs McKellen's Richard. And if Ian McKellen were standing here right now and he said, "No, I never saw Olivier's Richard before I played Richard," I'd
That was
call
a
him.
terrible
I would
Ian
say,
McKellen impersonation. I think you can do better than that.
"You shall not
Yes,
pass."
that
Oh,
channel.
sorry,
Sir Ian, Sir Ian, Sir Ian.
Sir Ian. Wait, no, I can't. I can't do. I can't do. I don't.
You can't.
I can do good impersonations, but not a good Ian.
No.
But
I
if
don't
he
feel
were,
like Ian would be in your
I
wheelhouse.
guarantee you, he would not tell me he had not seen Olivier's Richard.
Probably not.
And I think it informs his Richard, which is why I think Olivier's Richard is worth mentioning. It's not great, but it definitely teaches the rest of us how to play Richard. And if Christopher Carbo, who is an actor that we both have worked with many times, who has been a guest on this podcast program.
And played Richard III.
If he were here right now, I think he would agree. We'll call him up later.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Macbeths. Who's the best film version of Macbeth ever?
I don't remember who played Macbeth. Quite honestly, I don't remember any of the actors who were in that. And I'm pretty positive that Roman Polanski's version of Macbeth is the Macbeth.
That's the one you remember?
Of.
That's the one you think of? Okay. I don't know how many Macbeths you've been exposed to, but obviously
not as many films of versions of Macbeth as others. That's the one I remember the most, and that's the one that I remember liking the most, because the other ones I've seen besides that, I just actually hated all of them pretty much.
Here are the ones that I recall most. First and foremost is Orson Welles.
I didn't see that one.
And he filmed that at like these castle ruins over several few days, and with costumes from the local theater company. Yeah, it was basically a live theater performance on a location.
Mm-hmm.
Site-specific theater, that's what it was. Filmed over multiple days and then bang. And it's really damn good.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons. The Iago's not great, though.
There is no Iago in Macbeth.
I'm sorry. That's not who I meant. That's his
Banquo?
Othello. His Othello is good, but the Iago is not good.
Okay.
Even though it's Wells in blackface, or it's not, it's brown face. I don't know what face it is, but you can't accuse Wells of being insensitive in that day and age. It just was what it was.
It is what it was.
And he did a great rendition, but his Iago sucked in that film. But in Macbeth, the Macduff's not strong. That's what I'm talking about. So anyway, Wells, Macbeth. Have you seen Nicole Williamson?
I don't think so.
Nicole Williamson is most famous for playing Merlin in Excalibur.
Yes, I know. You love that film.
Oh, he's so brilliant. Yeah, Nicole Williamson. Okay, who else is in that film?
I don't know.
Patrick Stewart.
Okay.
Nigel Terry. Liam Neeson is in that film.
Oh, you're talking about Excalibur.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you went back to Macbeth.
No, I'm just saying. So these are people who got their start in Shakespeare and then ended up in that movie.
Right.
A lot of them, and then a lot
propel
of them
into Hollywood.
A lot of them later then went into more Shakespeare. Patrick Stewart's Macbeth is another Macbeth.
Yes.
That I have not seen.
No,
that
it's
is
on
my list.
Yes.
That I'll be curious to see what he does with that.
Actually very
so I
curious
can't judge, but what I can say is of the Macbeths I've seen, Wells and Williamson are two of the best. I'll tell you the one I really hated.
Well, I'm right there with you. Talk about disappointing.
Do it.
Michael Fassbender as Macbeth.
It's a terrible movie.
I didn't even know the director. And, oh man, I'm blanking on her name, but I wanted her to be so good. And I was so disappointed because I thought she was going to be really good in that role. And she was so disappointing as Lady M. Oh, what is her name? It's going to bother me. Oh, well. I'm sure it will come to me at some point. I don't
remember.
Maybe at 5 a.m. But
I don't remember, but I can tell you this.
She's a French actress, Marion Cotillard, and she should have been so much better than she was.
Was it the director? Was it
Possibly.
the talent of
It was.
What was it?
It was the director. It was the whole film. Like, the whole film was just not right. The concept of the film, they didn't know what they wanted. They were trying to be too. Everything felt so muted.
Well, let me tell you one of the things that I really hate about most Shakespeare film adaptations, and I judge an adaptation on this aspect, and that is if you are cutting the lines of the play in order to add all this Hollywood mumbo jumbo of, oh, look, we can go to an actual location,
right,
and we can film countryside, and we can
which is
film
one of the most
battle
wonderful
scenes
benefits of.
Sure, but if you're going to put all that stuff in order to take his text out, then you're ruining your film.
Right.
You are destroying the whole purpose for the reason that you had to make the film. You're making the film because I want to make a film of a Shakespeare play. There's the one thing I'll give Branagh's Hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't cut a line.
No, not a single one.
He probably should have.
Just think if he had added all the Hollywood mumbo jumbo in.
And,
I mean,
and
there was
don't
still
get me
Hollywood
wrong.
mumbo jumbo in there. There was just text to it. He tied it to the text. Not very well all the time, but at least it wasn't like, I'm going to cut all this text and throw all this random imagery in there. Like,
Many of the stage productions of Shakespearean plays that I have produced have been cut.
yes.
So that's not the point.
No.
You must cut.
not.
Some things you must cut. Even Hamlet, you must cut.
Especially Hamlet. It's 4 hours long if you don't cut it.
Yes. We all know this thanks to Kenneth Branagh.
Yes.
The point being
must
is
be cut.
don't cut text for they're riding horses through the countryside, or they're fighting battles in the mist, or don't do that. Don't do that.
That play, that movie, that Fassbender, Marion Cotillard.
It was terrible.
It was so misty. No, that's what it was. It was, everything felt like it was in the, the misty mountains, and it was just too misty.
Okay, here's a very misty film version of Macbeth that works better than that.
Yes, because,
It
throw a
is
lot of mist into
Akira Kurosawa's Throne of Blood.
But of course it works there, though. Throne of Blood.
And P.S. Fassbender has nothing on that.
No.
I want to say that the Fassbender Macbeth
was
wanted
trying to do
It
something
was.
like that.
It was
but
trying
it was so
to be-
unsuccessful.
It sucked.
Oh, it was terrible.
Please do not try to mimic Kurosawa. It's a bad idea.
One
But
of the best,
that is a great film adaptation,
which
of a
has been
Shakespeare play.
readapted to stage. One of the best plays I've ever seen at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival was Throne of Blood. I loved it, and that story lends itself so.
I wonder if
well.
they had to get licensing from Japan or Kurosawa's estate
I
or
have
whatever
no
to do it
idea.
that way.
I have no idea. It's quite possible, but it works so well. That story lends itself
Was
so
it
well
all
to that.
Japanese
Oh,
actors?
Yes. Yeah. And
That's incredible.
oh my gosh, the costumes were fantastic.
Of course they were.
The Lady Macbeth, I don't know her name in The Throne of Blood, but that character, she was incredible. And I was like, and I've played that role. And part of me was watching, I hadn't played that role when I saw that play, but part of me is just like, oh, I want to be a Japanese Lady M. It's just incredible. Like, she is that. That's why that story works so well in that culture.
I don't even know what that means, but I can tell you this. You can't be a Japanese Lady M.
I know, but, anyway.
Here are some more on my list. Kevin Kline, Stanley Tucci.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
No, I did not mention her. You mentioned, really? No, because she's not good. I'm sorry.
No, she's not. I had to throw her in there for
that film and Fabulous Baker Boys need to go like side by side on some shelf somewhere.
Next
for
to
her.
Grease
Next
2.
to Grease. You went there. That's not nice. But Klein and Tucci are both really good in that production of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yes.
And then the last one on this side of my list I want to talk about is Romeo and Juliet, Baz Luhrmann.
Yeah.
And here's what I know most of you right now listening are thinking. Because that's what I think. It's not great. It's not terrible.
It does what it needs to do. One
thing as far as what we need to all be considering, especially those of us who embrace and believe in the Shakespearean authorship question, that the mystery still needs to be solved. One thing that is most important to all of us right now, more than we like it or not, is that we need new generations to become invested in this mystery and solving this mystery. We need a whole new generation of Nancy Drews and Hardy Boys to figure this out. And somehow we have got to introduce them to this mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Baz Luhrmann does a great job of opening the door to a new generation to Shakespeare, period, let alone what then becomes Shakespeare plays, Shakespeare story, Shakespeare history, Shakespeare biography, and then hopefully the smartest ones always go, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense.
Right. It is. It's a gateway film. It's the,
White Zinfandel.
It is, yeah.
So it belongs on the plus side of the equation, not the negative, in my opinion.
Yes, there are some choices obviously made with that film that I heavily disagree with. I had an acting teacher when I was in high school show us clips of the Zeffirelli balcony scene and the Lurman in a pool balcony scene.
That's cruel.
to analyze why that is not a good choice to make for that scene. And there are so many textual things that support that he did take so many liberties with. And that's one of those things that always gets me is, you can't just negate. The balcony scene takes place on a balcony for a very good reason. You can't just throw that aside.
I agree.
Yeah. So, like I said, certain choices made that I heavily disagree with that kind of ruin that film for me. Not completely ruin it, because I will agree with you that it is a good. And for Baz Luhrmann and the spectacle of it all. And I actually really enjoyed the Mercutio, as crazily flamboyant and one as he was. I forget who that actor is, but I enjoyed his performance. But it does what it needs to do, hopefully, to incite a newer, younger generation into the interest of Shakespeare. When I first saw that film, I was definitely young, but it was not my introduction to Shakespeare. And had that been my introduction to Shakespeare, I would have definitely been intrigued enough to go watch other better films.
That's great. That's really, truly important, because you're right. It's not a great film. And that's why I put it last on that list, is that it does sort of ride that line of neutrality as a gateway or intro to Shakespeare for a whole new generation who, right or wrong, suddenly went, oh, I want to know more about this.
Right.
And when I gave presentations to high school groups, I would always include Hamlet, and I would always say to them in the initiation of Hamlet to them is, imagine this kid who suddenly has to live with his mom and his stepdad, and he hates his stepdad because he thinks his stepdad has usurped the position and authority of his dad. And suddenly all these teenage boys would go, pow. I want to know more about that guy.
Immediate connection. It's personal then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not elevated. It's not way up here. It's down on their level, And I think that's the truth of the matter is that that's one of the reasons that it is so brilliant. I love Shakespeare for the beauty of the language and the intelligence with which it was written and all of that. But you also love how personable the characters can be, even amidst all of that beautiful language and the imagery and all of that. You get all of that as an actor. You can enjoy that beautiful, rich, glorious text, but at the same time, these characters are real. Nobody else does that as well. It's true. I don't think anybody ever has been able to do that as well.
And the beauty, too, I think, of every one of these stories that we have seen through our history as producers, directors, actors in Shakespearean productions is these roles transcend everything. They transcend race, religion, gender. How many roles in a Shakespeare production have we changed from one gender to another?
And it's fine.
And the audience never cares. How many times have we had a person of this race, this religion, this race, this creed, this skin color, all be in one family, and the audience doesn't care? They just don't see it that way.
Yeah, it does. It transcends all of
They're
that.
able to be transported to the place and time of a Shakespearean play because of the brilliance of the writing.
Right.
And nobody sees anything beyond that once they're invested in the story. Unfortunately, there are still films that do not capture that.
No,
And
definitely not.
We're way over time, but I want to touch on just a couple more of films that are on our down list.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ones I want to mention is most importantly on this list, and that is Julie Taymor's Titus. And many of our listeners know that I love Titus, that it is one of my favorite plays. Poor Dr. Earl Showerman has to listen to me every single time he's on this program, needle him about when are we going to do Titus? When are we going to talk about Titus? When can we address Titus? Because I love that play. I'm going to force him into it. I promise. I promise you, listeners, I will make this happen. But
nonetheless, Julie Taymor does not do a very good job with Titus.
No,
you want to talk about some great Hollywood mumbo jumbo added to eliminate text
with brilliant actors. She has some of the greatest talent ever at her disposal in that film, and she still ruins it.
There are moments of that film that I really enjoyed, but as a whole, no, it is. It's too much. It is, and there's not enough of the text that makes that play so beautiful, and there is just too much of the crazy imagery, like you called it, the Hollywood mumbo jumbo. It starts with 10 minutes of choreography.
Yes, at the sacrifice of text.
Yeah. And this is something that
boom, immediate, no, done. P.S.
That
boom.
You and I have discussed that I would be remiss to not bring up, which is how obviously now in the modern era where film is a very prevalent source of entertainment and live theater is still, fighting to stay alive and thrive, is how much theater is now influenced by film, which means you go see a Shakespeare play now and you're getting 10 minutes of Hollywood mumbo jumbo in there too. Like, how many Shakespeare plays have we seen that started off with random choreography and just didn't start with the text, that started with just imagery and stuff and things that... And
that's called farcire. Farcire, to stuff.
Now,
Italian term.
I love concepts. I've seen some wonderfully conceptualized Shakespeare plays and films and been in a handful of very strongly conceptualized but brilliantly conceptualized Shakespeare plays. And the reason why was because the concept melded with the text just beautifully. It wasn't a concept that was thrust upon the text. They conjoined together and it was brilliant. If you can marry a concept with the text, it's wonderful. If you have a concept and a text and they don't know how to dance together, it's not at all. It's just not good.
I feel like a lot of the productions I've seen recently, even in very highly professionalized locations, have been like that, have been not sure what they want to be.
Right.
Trying to appeal
you're trying
to
force,
all things.
Trying to force too much of any concept onto the text and not just embracing the text and finding that concept that marries itself so beautifully to it.
Julie was on the top of her game when she got that job.
Yes.
It was Lion King Central.
Mm-hmm.
She was the queen of Broadway,
Yes.
and now let's give her a movie. And it failed. I think it failed.
Yeah,
even with
I agree.
all the talent. Jessica
you
Lange
got-
is awesome.
And Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins is awesome. Jonathan Rhys-Meyers is brilliant.
He's so
And
young in
that's-
that film.
That's what makes him later on get on to become the star of the Tudors.
For sure.
Which, P.S., anybody who's listening to this right now, if you haven't watched that, you need to.
Side thing
For
to watch.
all of the accuracy and all of the inaccuracy.
Yes.
You need to watch it. But he's magnificent. Almost everyone in that film is brilliant.
It is. It is a true, because I don't know the name of the actress, but I thoroughly enjoyed her performance, who was the Lavinia.
Lavinia?
Yeah, and that's a great character, but it was just misdirected. And Alan Cumming as Saturninus,
Oh, my
and you
goodness.
said that when we were watching it together, he steals the play. He does. He's fantastic.
He does.
But it was so
He's the most theatrical
misdirected.
person
Yes, he is, of course.
in the cast.
He's Alan Cumming.
He's Alan Cumming.
Yeah.
Duh.
But
P.S. Period.
It was misdirected, and that shows you even a director at the height of her career can still misdirect. And I think that is exactly what happens to that film, is how misdirected it is.
Okay. As we close now, I want to hit this last final show. I have never seen a film version of As You Like It that is worth watching.
Definitely not. Just don't go there. You see As You Like It pop up as a Shakespeare film to watch, just don't even go there. None of them are good.
Branagh's version with the weird, Japanese cherry blossom theme thing that was going on with all these British actors, which probably is actually today very not appropriate. And then Helen Mirren's BBC version. Look, if Helen Mirren walked into this studio right now and said, "Come with me," I would follow her wherever she led me. However, her Rosalind is terrible.
It's the only thing I'll ever have over Helen Mirren. My Rosalind is better in Stephen's eyes.
Yes.
But her Rosalind is not good.
No, it's terrible.
No, it's ridiculously high pitched too. Her voice was so just not right.
She is such a brilliant artist and a magnificent actress, and I love almost everything she's ever done.
She was very young in that film.
Well, okay, so who do we blame? Do we blame the director or we blame the young
Oh,
actress?
definitely blame the director. It's Helen Mirren.
Okay.
We can always blame the director if
Yes.
it's Helen Mirren.
Because it's not too long after that she's in Excalibur. See how that came round circle?
Wow, good job.
Thank you. You're welcome. Helen Mirren is Morgana in Excalibur. She's so young. Oh, she's so beautiful too in that movie. She's awesome in that movie. But she's really awesome in that movie though too. She's so much better in that movie than she is as Rosalind
Yeah, and
it
you'd
can't be
think-
that far apart.
No, and you'd think an actress because at that point, yes, she's young, but you know she's trained. And she should be
Well, she
all
got
over
hired.
that role. She should be all over that role and have done it. But
The only person we haven't mentioned that was in that film that was also really big, Gabriel Byrne, is also in that movie. So you look at Nicole Williamson, Gabriel Byrne, Liam Neeson, Helen Mirren, Patrick Stewart, Nigel Terry. Like, that film is one of the greatest films ever made. It's not a Shakespearean film, but it should have been, because it's full of great artists who later become great Shakespearean artists.
That the cast of Excalibur should come together at one of their homes and shoot a Shakespeare film over a weekend. And it would be much better than Joss Whedon's.
Yes, it would. It would be so much better than what Joss Whedon was able to do. Even that they're all like 90.
Yes. No, it would be so much better. On that note.
I think we covered the list.
Yeah.
Let me look through. I still have 2 pages. I have 2 pages. It took me 2 pages, which is why this is a long episode, ladies and gentlemen.
There are a lot of Shakespeare films out there.
There are a lot.
Do you happen to know the Shakespeare play that has been most covered on film?
Take a guess.
Do you know?
I do know.
Oh, there you go. My guess would be, let's say about a top 3. It's either Midsummer, Hamlet, or Romeo and Juliet, and I'm going to venture to say Hamlet.
It's Midsummer. Dating all the way back to like the 20s.
Yeah.
And then there's that great 1930s version with Mickey Rooney.
Oh, yeah.
As Puck.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes that far back. Yeah, Midsummer.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, how many times have I produced and directed Midsummer Night's Dream?
He's about to do it for the 20th time.
No, stop. I think this will be my 9th.
Yeah.
My 9th time this summer.
At least one more.
Yeah. I got to do at least 10 now.
Do at least 10. Yeah.
I was saying to an actor and technician at the theater the other day about Midsummer. I said, this will be my 8th time. 9th time. I said I've done it 8 times already.
Yeah.
And I said to him, it's a play you never say you'll never do again, because it's a play you'll always do again.
Yeah.
And for a variety of reasons. It's accessible, it's family friendly, it's funny, it's
light,
a
brilliant play.
It's hysterical.
It is. It's a brilliant play.
It has fairies.
Yeah, can't go wrong with fairies.
Never go wrong with fairies. So yeah, this will be the 9th production of Midsummer.
It doesn't surprise me that is the most film version. Now, ironically enough, though, not many. We didn't talk too much about that film. The film adaptations of Midsummer Night's Dream in this discussion.
No, because most of them aren't good.
No, they're not. They're not. And even the one that you talked about with Stanley Tucci and Kevin Kline, it's good, but it's not. It's definitely not one of my favorites.
I never understood why Disney never did an animated version of A Midsummer Night's Dream, because I think it would be a magnificent cartoon.
There are animated
and they're not good.
It.
Yeah,
no,
but they're not
very good.
No.
There you go.
Disney needs to do it. Disney plus Shakespeare equals win. That's what I say.
Sure. Awesome.
P.S. Any Disney execs who are listening to this podcast, please call me and let's get together.
Let's make that happen.
That being said, we want to thank you, fellow Quillers, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to our musings about the film adaptations of The Great Bard. It was a request that you wanted to hear. Now you have it. I hope, most importantly, that it makes you do 2 things. 1, go and view some of the films that we mentioned that you have not seen. 2, ask yourself, truthfully, could the man from Stratford have actually written this diverse group of scripts that have created this many wonderful and not so wonderful films that filled this episode of this podcast? Or does it make more sense that somebody else probably wrote this canon that now 450 years later is still inspiring new works, new adaptations, new discussions like the one that you're listening to today? That being said, please visit ShakespeareOxfordFellowship.org, ShakespeareOxfordFellowship.org. Join. I know some of you listening have not done so. Come join us. Join us in this quest. Join us in this lifelong journey to find the truth. We need your help. We can't do it alone. But together, we can make a change. And that's why we should, for always and forever, keep asking questions.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating and review in your podcast player. For even more, visit our website, don'tquillthepodcast.com. There you can find official merchandise in our shop, as well as a link to our Patreon. This show is made possible by people like you. We hope you'll consider showing your support by becoming a monthly patron, where you'll receive bonus material and tons of exclusive perks. You can also join in the conversation on our Discord and by following us at Don't Quill the Pod on all social media. All of this can be found at don'tquillthepodcast.com, don'tquillthepodcast.com.
It's Dragon Wagon.